so we'll make a start. We're going to look at a couple of things today. One is notifications, and the second, quite why I didn't put it on the title slide, I don't know, is started services. So these are services that can run even when your application terminates, which is quite useful. And we'll use a started service to trigger a notification when our app's in the background. Those of you who've got Android phones, I'm sure you're familiar with what a notification looks like. Those of you like me who are on iOS, they kind of, you get a little ding, you swipe down from the top, and you can see these little notifications. It's possible to interact with them, and you can tap on them and they can take you into the application as well, depending on how they've been configured. Okay, so we'll have a look at those, and we'll have a look at started services as well. So obviously, notification allows the app to inform us of something, and it can do it even when it's not in the foreground. As I said already, you swipe from the top of the screen, and I said already, you can launch an activity from it. Takes a little bit of kind of getting set up. You have to give it an icon. You have to at least give it a small one, but you can also give it a large one. You have to provide like a title and some content. You set how important it is with a priority. And if you're running on Android Oreo or later, you also have to specify a channel. Okay. So you can have multiple channels for an application, so you can have different types of notifications. So the user can say, well, actually, we would like this type of notification from an application, but not this type of notification. We're obviously just going to use one channel today, but and if you've got similar types of notification, obviously use the same channel. So you don't have a new channel for every app, you just have the channels that you need. Okay. And the code for notification looks something like this. Okay. Rather than stick on the slides for too much longer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a little app, and it's the procrastinator's app because it's going to allow us to put something in that we want to do later, and it will fire a notification, then we can use the notification to figure out what we need to do later. It's kind of trivial, but hopefully semi-fun. So I've got at the moment an empty, I've just started with an empty application. There's nothing in it at the moment. Okay, but what I'm going to do is add a edit text, okay, to it, and I'm going to add a button. Where's my button's gone? And then we'll also add another little extra switch. We haven't used a switch yet, to determine whether we want the notification to fire immediately, so it just sits in our notifications and we kind of want to deal with it now, or whether we're really lazy and we want to deal with it later. So I think if I do that, and yep. Oh no, click the button next, and then something like that, we should get a layout. So we don't want any text inside our edit text. And it's not going to be a person name, is it? It's just going to be text. Hint can be, what do you want to do later? The button text, I'll convert these to resources in a minute. Do it later. Ooh. And then maybe we'll set the switch to be something like, where's the text? Auto snooze. Okay, right, so hopefully if we make it a little larger, you can kind of see how that looks. We've got like an edit text of thing we can do. We've got that. We've got obviously a load of warnings, so let's go and fix these and extract them into string resources. We don't want any text on the switch. Oh, I put text on. So a switch has got a text on and a text off property, so you can change like whether it's on or off, or you can just like set default text for the switch, which is what I'm going to do. So I don't actually want the text on option, but I still want to convert that to a string resource, and that to a string resource, and we don't want that, so we can actually remove that. Okay. Hopefully we've gone rid of most of the warnings. What this one, autofill, we can ignore that one. Okay, so we've got this, what do you want to do later, a button to do it later, and some auto snooze, and we'll write some, we'll put in an on-click event later. We'll call the method later. Okay. So I've used setup, and we need to just implement that method called later, and it has to take a parameter called a view. Okay. And here's where we set up our notification. So hopefully, just to check that looks roughly as we'd expect. There we go. Looks good to me. Okay. Nothing happens, obviously, at the moment. So one of the first things we've got to do is we've got to set up that notification channel because we're on API 28. So we could put all of the code to do that inside our main activity. But if you've done tutorials, you'll have come across at least one reference so far to something called the single responsibility principle. And that says that a class should only have one reason to change. And if we make as well as like getting the text from the user, so as well as handling the user interface, if the activity is responsible for firing notifications, it's kind of got more than one responsibility. And yes, we have written a lot of applications so far this year where the activity has done a lot of the work. And arguably, in many of those cases, we're violating the single responsibility principle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a separate class that is going to be designed to handle the notifications. That way we can sort of take out all the logic that is involved with like setting up the channel and all of that kind of stuff. So that's relatively easy. I can just click on the folder for the project, do a new Kotlin file or class. We'll make it a class, and we'll call it a notifier. Okay. One of the things that we need to be aware of is that a lot of the code, if we take it back to the slides, we have to use, let's go back. Did we use it here? Just trying to see. Yeah, so we need a context. So we're using a context both for the channel, and we need a context for the notification builder. Okay. Now, obviously, if we create a separate class, that's not going to have the context. So an activity is a context. It inherits from context. But if we just create a notification class, then it won't. We don't really want the notification to extend context because it isn't really a context. We just need access to it. So our notification class, maybe we'll get a constructor where it has access to a context. Oh, that did not work. Context, okay, and we'll just import a context. So when we construct a notifier, all we need to do is pass the activity, because the activity extends context, into the notifier class when we create it. So we might do something like, we might say that this activity has got a notifier, so we might say something like var notifier, but obviously we can't instantiate it here because we've got this whole problem of it being an activity. We need the context in order to instantiate it, so we'll have to say that it is a notifier and that we'll do a late init on it. And then we can instantiate it in onCreate, so we can say something like notifier equals notifier, and we just pass the context, because the context will exist once we've called onCreate. I'm just going to put that at the top because I like it there. Okay, so we haven't made much progress yet. So we've got this rule that we've got to have a notification channel. Okay, so and the notification channel has got to have both a name and a description. Okay, so maybe we'll just declare them as constants up here. Channel name, and maybe we'll call it later, which is the name of our app. And we also need a channel description. Maybe notifications from the later app. Now, obviously, if our application had different types of notifications, this is where we'd give a more accurate description. Okay, because we're only going to have one channel, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so we need to create this notification channel. So I'll create a method called create notification channel. But we only create a notification channel if we're on a version of Android that is Oreo or later. So we need some kind of if statement to check that. And we can find out what version of Android we're running by doing build.version.sdk_int. And we just need to import build. And obviously we need to compare that to, well, unfortunately we can't just do this. We can't just do like is greater than or equal to O. we need to reference that, so we can do build.version codes. Where's it gone? Version codes dot, and then you can see all of the different version codes. And for some reason, they started off naming them, and then they just like gave up and just went with M, N, N, and O. So, sure, whatever. So now we've got to go through all the process of creating a channel name. And we also have to give a channel an ID, okay, which can be a string, bizarrely enough. So I think what we'll do is just something like val channel ID equals channel name. What's it called? Channel name. And then we also specify the importance for that channel. So we can do importance equals notification manager. Okay, that should import it. Yep, so it's imported notification manager at the top there. And then we can choose an importance. So I'll just go with default for now. I can't imagine. We could put low if it's something we're trying to put off doing. But I haven't tested whether that has any effect on how it comes through. So I'll leave it as default for now, but you could try it with low if you like later. Then you've got to create a channel. Okay, and you do that by creating a notification channel object. You have to pass in to that the channel ID, the channel name, which we've called up there. We could have just put a string in here, but if we need to use it later, then it's useful to have it. And then some importance. Okay. And then the sequence is a bit odd here. So we do that, and then we call like apply on it. Okay. So this then happens asynchronously. And it means that the context within these braces, when we call apply, becomes this channel. Okay, so the context is no longer our notifier, it's this channel. So channel has a property of description. Okay, that belongs to the channel, not the notifier. And we can specify that that is our channel description. Okay, that's not all we need to do. We have to then get a notification manager. And this is one of those things where the code is a bit horrible because we get some generic object back from a system that we ask the context for a system service. That gives us like a generic thing. Then we have to cast it as a notification manager. I don't know why Android makes things so horrible. So we can say notification manager which is going to be a notification manager, just so it's clear for us, notification manager. And that's going to be, I'll just put it on a new line, but new line's not that important. We'll say context dot get system service, and then the name of that is, I'm sure we could put the string in whatever it is, but we can get to it by going context dot notification service. But obviously, what does get system service return? An object of type any, so an any, that's no use. In order for it to use it as a notification manager, we've got to cast it as a notification manager. So we can say as notification manager. So if we read the documentation, it will tell us that if we call get system service and pass in context at notification service, we will get a notification manager. Quite why they can't give it back as some kind of strongly typed object, I don't know. But again, that's Android for you. So then we say, okay, notification manager, create a notification channel, and that channel is going to be the channel we just built. So, okay, all that just so we can send notifications on Oreo and Pi. Okay, so we're going to have to do this regardless. So we might as well call create notification channel when this class is created. Okay, does anyone remember way back to the start of the year? We looked at sort of Kotlin and constructors. Now we've obviously got a primary constructor here where we pass in context, and you're right, we should make it private. So let's make that private. But we can't call methods from inside this primary constructor. So does anyone remember how we write code that is called when the class is initialized? Yeah. Okay. So we can say init. And we can then call create notification channel. Right, I did this last night, and it's slightly different to the way you did it in the tutorial, and it didn't work for me, and I spent ages trying to work out what it was doing, and then I realized that something really stupid. This will work as it stands, but I'm going to change it so that it won't work. Okay, any ideas, you might be able to figure it out by what I just done, why that wouldn't work? Yeah.
Is it because init's called based on how far down, like in the file it is?
Exactly, yeah. So init would be called before channel name and channel description are instantiated. So although there's no static analysis that tells us that this is a problem, actually at the point we come to try and use channel name or channel description, it's going to say it's null and we're going to get an exception thrown because some part of creating a channel is going to need it. Okay, so don't do what I did last night and then spend 10 minutes on Stack Overflow trying to Google something I should have known. Make sure that you declare your constants before you call the init method for create notification channel because it will rely on these, on those. Okay, so just a warning. Okay, so we still haven't fired a notification. All we've done is we made sure we can send a notification. I think the next thing we can probably do, again, I think we can make that private because there's no real need to call it from outside, is to build a notification. Okay, if we think about what we're going to do, if we go back to our main activity, we've got some text. Okay, now notification can have a title and and some content. We just use the title as the name of our app and then put the content as what the user wants to do. Okay, so when we call make notification in this particular instance, we just need that single string that the user has asked for. Okay, so we might do something like val, what we're going to call it, a task equals, and then whatever our edit text is called, which is probably edit text because I haven't named it, dot text. Does that return a string or does it return an editable? I think it might return an editable. Let me just check. Yes, it does. So we have to call dot string on that. Okay. So we've got a task, and then what we might do is we might ask our notifier to send a notification with that task. So we need to come back to that in a minute. So let's create a function. Not only do we want to be able to make a notification, we also need to send one. So I'm going to do it in 2 stages. I'm going to create a method that will build a notification and return a notification object, and then I'm going to have another one that's going to send it, because later on we might need a notification, but we might want to delay the sending. So I don't want to couple the 2 things together, because we haven't talked about that little snooze button yet, and that's where we're going to look at how we can delay things. So we'll build a function to make a notification, okay, given that some kind of string, and it will return obviously a notification. That is not a notification. Notification. Okay. So how do we do it? Okay, well, we need a notification builder to get started. So we can say something like var builder equals notification builder, or it's notification compat builder, notification compat.builder. There we go. I need you to get the capital right. And that notification builder needs a context and a channel ID. Okay, you can see that there's a deprecated method for context. That will be from versions that are older than Oreo, and the compatibility version of the notification class gives us a builder that works with both. Okay, so this kind of code is only useful if we're in Oreo, but we still need the channel ID. What I have done here, and this is maybe a bit nasty, is declare the channel ID here and set it to the channel name, and I need to use it here as well. So it's probably a little bit nicer to also say something like val channel ID equals later, and then we can change channel ID if we need to, but we use channel ID rather than using this one. Let's make this channel ID. Okay. And then we can use that here. So we need context. Well, context we passed in when we create a notifier, so it's called context. And the channel ID is now channel ID. Okay, so that creates a notification builder to build a notification that will go out on a particular channel. So then we configure the builder with the various different things. So we need like an icon. I haven't got any icons. So if you want an icon, there's quite a lot of helpful ones in the Android material design library, which is at, go on the web, material.io. /tools /icons. Okay, and we can have a look through. Now I want one that is going to be like kind of do it later. I did find one that's called schedule before. I think was it called schedule? Yeah, the schedule baseline schedule black. Where is it? Filter by net. Yeah, that would work. There we go. I thought that was kind of appropriate. So if you click on that, you can then download different versions of the icon. I always forget how to choose which version of the icon. If you just selected icon, there is an option. Yeah, here where it says 18. I actually only need 18 dp. But if you want like a whole set for Android, you can do that. I'll do that anyway, and you can download a version. So there we go. Get Android baseline schedule Android black.zip. We'll extract that and we'll get all these drawable folders. Okay, ignoring the top one, which you don't need. I'm going to copy all of the rest of them. Then I'm going to go to my Android application. I'm going to right-click on the res folder, and I'm going to go to reveal in Finder. Okay, and then I'm going to paste them all in there. Okay, so in each of those we've got like an 18 pixel one or equivalent, depending on what pixel density we've got. And if we build our project, I'll just comment that out so it will build. So we can go make project. We should see in a second. Oh, let's solve our compilation error first. Where was it? Come back. Can't see log. Oh, I've not returned. Yeah, I've not returned a notification. So just for a second, I'll comment that method out, and then I'll build and make project. Okay, so all being well, there we go in our drawable. We've now got these, you can see those icons. Okay, I actually only want the 18 one, so I can just do that and delete them, and it will actually delete them all as well from the hard drive. Okay, so I've only got the one I need now, which is the little one. We could have kept the big one and used it for later or what have you. So I can now access that with like r.id. Etc. to find it. If I can just uncomment this out. So we were going to get our builder. We're going to set small icon. Where's it gone? Set small icon. And then we can set our ID as r.drawable. And it was baseline schedule black. There we go. Because I haven't built, it's still showing the other ones that I've deleted. But they won't exist shortly, so we don't want to use those. Then we need to set some text, okay. What is it, content text? We've got a title and text, you see. So let's do title. We'll call that later. And then we'll do set content text. And we'll make that, that's the text that's being passed in. So we just say text. Okay, so the title of our notification will be later, the text of the notification will be whatever the user's requested. And then we specify priority for the notification. So not only does the channel have a priority, because we set that, or the channel's got importance, the notification has a priority. So then we say builder.priority equals, and then we go notification compat.priority, and then we can specify a priority. Again, I'll go with default for now. Okay. And then if we want, question, yeah.
Does priority just, like, what does priority actually do? Is it just like positioning on the notification?
I have no idea. We can have a look. Let's have a look and see if the documentation tells us. Okay, let's have a look at the method that sets the priority. Here we go. Oh, good. There's no documentation for it. Let's find out. Android notification priority with T. Notifications overview priority. No, let's keep going. The relative is an indication of how much of the user's valuable attention should be consumed by a notification. Low priority notifications may be hidden, and the user might be interrupted for high priority notifications. The system sets notification priority based on various factors, including the set priority value, and the effect may differ.
Oh, it's just like if you're watching a video and
It might not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at a guess, if it feels like it and you've set it to high, it might interrupt the video. If it's set to normal, it probably won't. So on and so forth. It's not particularly clear or guaranteed by the looks of the documentation, but yeah, hopefully that will. Yeah, well, that's all it says. So that's all I can tell you for sure without trying it. And obviously, different implementations of Android, different versions might behave slightly differently. Okay. Oh, well, let's just closed it. Where's it gone? Notify. Okay. So once we've done that, we can build a notification. So we can do like builder.build. That actually returns a notification, so I might as well just return that. Okay. So now I've got a method that will make a notification. What we might come back to later is to do intent for notification. So this notification will not be interactive, like it will turn up and you'll be able to dismiss it, but you won't be able to click on it. But we might come back and do something about that later. Okay. So we're getting there slowly, but we obviously need to be able to send that notification. So I'm going to create another function which will be public. We'll say send notification. Again, we'll pass in a string. What that will do is create a notification by calling the make notification message and passing the text. And then we want to send that. So to send it, we write this code where we say with, okay, and then we go and get our notification manager compat. There we go. I probably imported notification manager that I now don't need. I don't think I need that. Let's take it out and see if anything else breaks. Oh no, we do need that. Okay, so we'll leave that in and we use the compat one to send it. But when we create that, we have to do like from and pass in the context that we've constructed the notify class with. And then once we've done that, we need an ID for our notification. Okay, if we sent a notification and we want to update that notification, we need an ID in order to be able to do so. Okay, now one option, and probably the best option, is every time we create a notification, we keep a log of it and we store it in some kind of database or file or something. Okay. I really can't be bothered doing that for the purposes of this demonstration. So I'm going to get a pseudo-unique code by asking for the hash code of the text for the notification, which does mean if we try and send another task with the exact same text, we could have a problem. But for the purposes of the demonstration, it will do okay. So we could say something like notification ID equals text dot hashcode, and that will give us an integer, and we can use that as a notification ID. It's a bit cheeky. It's not the best option if you're doing it properly. As I say, you'd probably want to store each new notification in a file so you could look it up if you needed it. And then we call notify. So bear in mind, within here, we're in the context of a notification manager compat object and not within the context of our notifier class. So we can just call notify, which belongs, as I say, to the notification manager compat. And we pass in the notification ID, and we pass in the notification. Okay, so all being well, having done all of that, we go back to our main activity. We can use our notifier to send a notification with a text. Okay. Oh, it's task, not text. Okay, any questions before I try it and probably find it doesn't work? No? Okay, let's hope for the best. So we should see an immediate notification with what we've done as it stands. So what do I want to do later? Well, I imagine for some people it's this. Okay, so you probably just about heard that. That's a notification. And if I swipe down, you can see here it says that's the name of our app, there's the name of our, or probably the name of our channel, not sure which. There's the title, and there's what we should be doing later. Okay, obviously if I tap and nothing happens, I've got the usual sort of snooze and settings, and presumably I can dismiss it if I do the other way to dismiss it. No, who knows how you dismiss it on Android. Clear all. All the way to the left. Okay, and there it's gone. So it fires. Okay. Now that might be all we need, but let's just explore it a little bit more. So we've done a channel, we've created a notification, but what we can't do is interact with it. I can't tap on it. I can swipe it away and snooze it. So what we might do, I'm only going to show you sort of, I'm not going to because we haven't stored what that notification is in a database, or there's nothing else associated with it. All I'm going to do is just launch a different screen to prove that you can go into a different part of the application. But there are things we could do. So basically, we have to create an intent. So we're used to creating intents to go to a different activity. But what we then actually do is create something called a pending intent, which kind of wraps up the intent. So we create a normal intent, put the extras. So if we want to put some values in there, we can, which we could then get out again. Then we create a pending intent, and then we use a notification builder to set the intent. Pretty sure that should say intent. It's a content. It's called a content intent. So that should probably say content intent, just to confuse things. So let's have a look at how we do that. Okay, so I'd put in a little to do up here, intent for notifications. Okay, so we start off by creating like a regular intent. So we can say something like val intent equals, and then an intent, and then we pass in the context. We need to import intent, so let's just do that. And we also pass in the class that we want it to load. Now, I don't want it to come back to the main activity. I actually want it to go to a different one, because that's the whole point. You want to be able to go to a specific part of your application. So I'm just going to quickly add a new activity. So we'll do new activity, empty activity. I will call it view notification activity. Okay, and then let's have a look at our layout for, come back. Layout, activity view notification, and I'll just whack a text view in there, right in the middle. We will, I'll just put some text in for now. Viewing notification, and it's going to complain, isn't it? So I'll fix that. Okay, so all it's going to do is just pop up with viewing notification in the middle of the screen, just to kind of prove it works. So we create an intent. We need to say, okay, the intent we want is the view notification activity class.java. Okay, so that's the intent. And then we can use that kind of same, rather than doing like intent dot flags, you can do that whole like apply thing. So you create it, and then this apply thing happens. Pretty sure it happens like synchronously with other things. And then we have to set, for some reason, where's it gone? Flags. We have to set a flag. Intent dot, that's not working. Intent dot flag activity new task. Okay. I'm not entirely sure why. I probably should have read the documentation to find out exactly why I need to do that, but either way, you do. So that's the intent, and it says where it's going. Now we could like put extras if we wanted to. So we could say something like intent dot put extra, and we might say task, and then we might whatever the task is. Where is it called? Is it just text here? Yeah, text. So we could get that out again later if we needed to. Okay, so that's the intent, but then we've got to create this pending intent thing. So you say like val pending intent, and that is a pending intent, and then we call get activity on that. We have to pass in again the context. We have to pass in a request code. Okay, so again, this needs to be unique. We might use, for example, the same code as the identifier for our notification. Well, we did that before by getting a hash code of the text. So again, it's a bit hacky, but it will do the job. For now, we also have to pass in the intent that we just created, and we need another flag, which is pending intent. Pending intent, dot flag update current. So if let me remember if this is right. I can't quite remember actually. I think this was to do with whether you've got an existing activity open and whether it updates it. I can't quite remember. Maybe I would suggest for your reading, you have a quick read around what the two flags that I've set actually do. So we'll do flag update current. It might actually be as to if you're updating the existing notification. I'm not sure. Have a look in your directed study time. Then we tell the notification builder to set the content intent, because that's nice and easy, and we have to pass the pending intent into that. Okay, so what that should mean is that if we create a new notification, the user will be able to tap on it and they'll be taken to this activity view notification, which at the moment will just say whatever it was I typed in, you're viewing this screen. But what we could do is we could write code in the Kotlin file for the view notification activity to get the intent and load the intent on screen. If we do that, I'll be talking forever because I haven't even started talking about started services yet. So we'll just check it takes us into another activity. You've all done getting information out of an intent for an activity, so you should be familiar with that, or at least you can look up the code in tutorials. So, right, hopefully that restarted. I didn't actually see that it did, but let's test it. What do I want to do later? Sleep. Do it later. Notification fires, swipe down. So now we should be able to tap on it, and then you can see it's taken us into our later app, into the viewing notification activity. Okay. Hitting back though will take us out of, oh no, it takes us back to the main activity. I did not, I think that's where we were before as opposed to being out of the application. So it would have taken us, if we were in a different application, it would have taken us back to where we were in that other application. Okay, well it's all well and good, but really what I'd like to do is hit auto snooze and to have it snooze and send it later. Okay, so we need to do a little bit more work to get that up and running, and that is to create a notification or to create a started service. Okay, so we can do that by right-clicking and doing new, and then you'll find down here there's like a service option, and we're going to do a service. Okay, so my service is going to be for notification, so I'm going to call it notification service. We don't want it exported. That would make it available to other applications. We don't want that. There you go, whether or not components of other applications can invoke service or interact with it. We do want it enabled, quite why you wouldn't, I don't really know. Yeah, and we'll do it in Kotlin. Okay, so we get this kind of set up where we've got a method that's already being overridden called onBind. Okay, there are different types of services. One type of service is called a bound service, and others are started. We're going to create a started service, so we don't actually really want this. So we have to just return null. Okay, but it's going to complain at me because it's going to say that you can't return null if the method requires an iBinder. Okay, obviously you could in Java, because Java let you return null even if you meant to supply something else. Obviously Android is written in Java, so we can kind of get our way around that by making that nullable, and then that just goes away and we don't have to worry about the error. Okay, but what we're interested in is started service. So we want to override a different method called onStartCommand. Okay, and we're passed a few things into that: an intent, flags, a start ID. Okay, so how are we going to use this? Well, essentially what we want to happen is when we call on start command, we're going to pass in, we're going to create this sort of service and pass in some values via an intent. So we can get things out of the intent in the same way we would have done if we'd bothered implementing the other activity. So we can say something like val text equals intent. So I haven't written the code to put the intent in yet, so just bear that in mind. We can call get string extra, okay, and I'm going to get out some text because I need that text to make my notification. Okay, assuming it exists, so we might want some kind of check to check that it's not null. That gives us a smart cast, so text we know is not null. We can create a handler object, okay? Let me import that. Okay, and then handler has a load of different post methods. We can post at a particular time, or we can post after some kind of delay. Okay, we haven't implemented any way for the user to specify at what point they want to be reminded, so we're just going to use post delayed, and we pass in an implementation of runnable. Okay, so we could create something that implements runnable and do that, or because it's a single interface, we can kind of use the same sort of shortcut code that we used when we do like an on-click handler. So we do like post delayed. Now this actually takes two parameters: the runnable, okay, and a delay in milliseconds. Okay, so how do we go about? Normally we just put like the curly braces and then write the implementation of the runnable interface, or the single method in the runnable interface. But because we also need to pass in a value, we kind of have to do this. We put the braces in for the runnable, then we put a comma, and then we put the delay. Okay, so the delay is in milliseconds, so 1,000 milliseconds in a second. I could obviously set a delay for like 10 minutes, but I imagine that part of the lecture where we click send and wait for the notification would be rather boring. So I'm just going to set it at like 5 seconds. Okay, and in here, this is where we implement the logic that we want to happen. So this is just an instance of runnable, and all a runnable is a bit of code that we want to execute at some point in time. Okay, so to do that, we can just create a notifier like we did before. That's a notifier. It needs some context, but fortunately, a started service also implements context, so we can pass or inherits from context, so we can pass a context there. And then we just use our notifier like we did before. We say notifier.send notification. And this is why I had to do this getStringExtra, because when we start our service, we are going to have to put an extra with the text we want to send. We have to get that out and put it into our notification. Okay, we probably could try and get notifier to like implement some kind of like, I don't know, serializable or what have you, and try and do it that way. But this is fairly simple. Okay. So what should happen is if we start this service, it should fire a notification, but it shouldn't fire a notification for 5 seconds. Okay. Obviously, we could multiply that by 60 for 5 minutes, and another 60 for 5 hours, and so on and so forth. Okay, and then this method has to return an integer, and there's what integer does it return? Well, this is where it's a bit odd. You just return start sticky, okay, which I think means that the application will just keep running. We don't have to return this. Okay, so we've now got a started service. Now we need to obviously invoke this service somehow. So we might go back to our main activity and we might say, okay, we've got task, but actually what we do here is really going to depend on whether or not they've checked that the switch, okay, or they've pressed the switch and put it on. So we can check the switch. I didn't rename it, so I think it's called switch 1. I know the switch is toggled, but for some reason, whoever built Android thought that having the method to check whether or not the switch is toggled is on or off is actually called isChecked. Why, I don't know. Okay, so if the switch is checked, we want to delay it. If not, we want to do it as normal. So we'll do that, and then we'll say like else. So that will send it immediately. But if it is checked, we want to do it slowly. Now, obviously, I need to start my notification service off to do that. Okay, so again, we create another intent. So intents all over the place. We need a context to start off an intent, and we need the name of the class we want to go to, which is called notification service. We need to import intent. Okay. Now, obviously, the intent, we read in an extra, but I need to put that extra in the intent in order that that can be taken out in the notification service and put into my notifier. So we need to do something like intent.putExtra The name, I think, did we call it text? This is where it does need to match up. Where's my service? Text, yes. So that needs to be text. And then the string with the notification is task. Okay, so that intent now has a text. And all we call is start service. So obviously we've used to starting an activity with an intent. Here we call start service with an intent. So we pass in that intent. Okay. One final thing we might want to do, if we've set it off, is just to clear the text. So we might say to the edit text, we want to clear it just for like nicety. Okay. So all being well, if we run it again. We'll leave it as it was before, just check it still works. What else I might want to have my T. That should fire immediately. It does. It's there. But if we do if we turn auto snooze on, okay, whilst normally we'd probably do it for an hour, we might say, I don't know what I want to do, study 5201, because you've got too much 5225 to do. Study. There we go. So if we hit do it later, we should get a 5-second delay, if that's what I set. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Around about 5 seconds. I'm pretty sure we did set it for 5,000. So obviously we could have done that with a date and time if we wanted to read in the date and time. That would have been one option, but we've just done that auto snooze. Chances are you'd probably do it for an hour, and then you'd see your notification files. And you can see the little clock icons up there for notifications. And you can see they've just fired. Okay. I think that's probably everything that was on the slides, but I will just check. Yeah, we've done that. We've done a pending intent for notification code. We've done a started service. Have a read about bound services in your directed study time. We talked about having to return null for onbind and the fact that we had to change the return type of the onbind method to a nullable object. And then what we did was implement that on start command. So this is kind of the long version of the code. I instead of doing where I did the handler, I just put in a set of braces here and put the code in. Whereas what we might do is we might say, okay, we'll create a runner, which is an instance of runnable, and we'd write the code in there. We could have done that if, I mean, the equivalent of doing that, that would have looked more like, where is it? We'd have said something like val runner equals a runnable, and then we're still implementing. There's a method inside runnable, which that's still being abstracted away. Can we do it the long way? If I can remember, runnable. I can't remember exactly what the name of the method is, but either way, we'd then put this in here. And then we'd post delayed, and we'd post runner. Okay, so we could do it that way. That's the kind of long way of doing it, but short way is even shorter. Let me start sticky. So again, in this case, this would be a 1 minute delay because we're 1,000 milliseconds in a second and 60 seconds in a minute. Okay, that's it. Any questions?